It must have been anxious and I think even a terrifying kind of wait for those people caught between the landslides on the highways in British Columbia a few weeks ago. In the dark, no cell service, wondering if that mountain beside them was going to come crashing down, wondering if anyone would even realize that they were there stuck, and then waiting and waiting for help to come. One person described it as a twilight zone. But their joy, their unbounded relief when the first Canadian Armed Forces Cormorant helicopter came and rescued them was beyond belief. Advent reflections, including my own, usually assume that we don't know how to wait, or that we aren't very good at it, or that we've been commanded by God to begin this time of waiting. And the truth is, I think, though, that we live our lives waiting. We know how to wait. Some of us enjoy it, even welcome it at times, and others of you just don't have that personality to do much in terms of waiting. But life in urban North America gives us no choice. Waiting comes with the territory. We know waiting. Whether it's waiting in the drive-thru at Tim's, or at the counter at Service Ontario, or in the monster lineup in front of the Apple Store and the Rideau Centre, we know waiting. The question which has been on my mind this week is, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? I hear it as, what is keeping you from doing what you want, what you need? Maybe what is keeping you from doing what God needs or wants you to do? What are you waiting for? And maybe you just don't know. Maybe you're like that first-year college or university student who isn't really sure, is this program for me? But where do I go if I'm not doing this? So yes, I'm waiting. But I don't know what's coming next. I also have this image that some of you are on the verge, on the edge of transformation. If you took one more step in that direction, your life might possibly change for good. But you're standing at the edge of change, waiting. Perhaps dramatic change. Waiting for the courage to take that next step. Waiting for that word from God, from a friend, from a mentor, an examiner, to say, go ahead. Don't wait any longer. Just do it. What are you waiting for? Over the years, I would say among the most difficult pastoral moments have been sitting with patients who wanted to die, but weren't really near the end. They're not suicidal, but they want to be relieved of whatever suffering has befallen them, or aging has left their bodies or their minds as skeletons of their former selves. And they're good if God would just take them home. But they lie in bed waiting. Lots of us get to that point in waiting where we do not want to wait anymore. We're tired of waiting. We want a solution. We want to be told, go home now, or forget about it, or here is what you should do. But we end up waiting and waiting and waiting, and our mind hurts and our feet hurts, and sometimes our bum hurts. Can't we move on? Can't we do something else? Can't we see a way through this problem? And how many of us right now are tired, even exhausted, of waiting for this pandemic to be over, for life to return as it was 21 months ago? When is it going to be back to normal, I hear? Occasionally, I have the courage to say, well, never. Usually we hedge the answer, sometime soon, we might say. But we know full well that yesterday will never return, at least not the way we remember it. When you stretch Israel's story over a timeline, what you see what you hear is that they were usually under the authority of some other nation or some other ruler. There are only these little brief periods in Israel's history when they were free of an oppressive overlord. And the story of their life as a people is one of waiting. Waiting for redemption. Waiting for the Messiah. Waiting to be set free of the powers that have a stranglehold over them. God seemed to have made them wait on a fairly regular basis. So it's no wonder that the Hebrew scriptures, which were read for us today, are full of expectation. This was a nation waiting for their freedom to come. And what are you waiting for? You know, listening to the conversations last week, I realized that what we wait for most is the ordinary. Waiting for the kettle to boil. Waiting for the Zoom meeting to begin. Waiting for the train to come. Waiting for the light to change. Some of you are waiting for test results to come in. Others waiting for surgery. Some are waiting for a treatment plan. Others for a transfer to more care. You could listen for a week, but really the honest truth is nobody talks about waiting for the Messiah to come or even for world peace to break out. Once in a while in the coffee shop, you hear somebody talking about waiting for the government to act on this issue or that. But life for us is lived in waiting for the ordinary. Which made me ask, what is God waiting for? Is the Creator waiting in the weeds of the ordinary for us to discover what is next? Is God patiently waiting for us and for all of the world to figure out that we need to cooperate instead of fighting? That we need to be reaching out instead of putting up all these barriers? That we need to be conserving instead of consuming? What is God waiting for? Looking back, not all waits are the same. Waiting can be onerous. It can be oppressive if you're waiting for surgery. Waiting when you have all the time in the world, it can be a piece of cake. Waiting with a friend is so much easier than standing there by yourself. Waiting on a sunny spring morning can pass like a second, but waiting in a blizzard for the bus to come can seem like forever. How often when the person finally arrives, or they give you a date for the operation, or the solution appears to you at last, do you say to yourself, well, yeah, the wait was worth it? What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Chesley Hughes was one of those people in British Columbia whose car was swept off the road by the landslide. And I don't know how she did it, but she managed to get out and sit on top of her car roof all night. And she said she was hearing rocks and trees sliding around the car. And she was sitting there, she said, waiting in a cold, hard rain to be rescued. The world is waiting for hope. It always has been, and it will be until the time of the great consummation. But that horizon for hope is often so distant, and waiting seems like an impossibility. How can you wait for peace to come among the nations? How can you wait for human kindness to overcome the madness of chaos and of violence? How can you wait for a promise to come? So I've been trying to frame waiting as prayer. Waiting is so much a part of our existence. It's not a foreign object out there to be learned. We know waiting. And yet we often chafe against it. We let it raise our anxiety. We let it leave us boiling to the point of frustration. So how can waiting, which is forever with us, be part of our being. Indeed, part of our Advent faith. I think it's when we begin to transform the waiting itself, whether it be for the next bus or for the nations to lay down their swords, to transform it into a prayer time. And then the waiting becomes part of our whole journey. Thanks be to God. Amen.